was fantastic. Welcome to the very first episode of the Fretboard Chronicles, and we are doing it right, starting off with a bang. Not only do we have Asher Kurtz out here all the way from New York, but the entire band, Childish Japes. JP on drums, Jed on bass. Thanks for coming out today, guys. I'm really looking forward to being inspired more by you guys on the performances that are coming up, but also with what you have to share with us, just on kind of continuing our education with the guitar, right? Yeah. If you've never heard about Asher, he is a Berklee College of Music graduate, and he's a full-time working, gigging musician. He has his hands in a lot of things, Childish Japes being, like, I guess, the premier one for you guys right now. You guys are on tour right now, right?
Yeah. We just released an album called After You're Born. You can find on Spotify.
And the Facebook is facebook.com/Childish Japes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's been a really fun project this past year. Just kind of got together and started jamming, just one-on-one, me and JP, and then Jed and JP one-on-one, and then we kind of fuse it all together, and now going to Australia in a few days.
That's
going to
awesome.
be touring for the release of the album, and bringing along an old friend. I used to be in this band called Mal's Totem, and our friend Dave Vivas is joining us.
That's the singer you're talking about, right?
That's the singer, yeah.
Cool. And where can people go to find out more about, like, your personal stuff that you're doing? It's AsherKurtz.com, right?
Yeah, AsherKurtz.com, but also, my Instagram. Just at Asher Kurtz. Asher Kurtz Music. And then also find me on Facebook.
Awesome, cool. Well, I'm excited to have you guys out, and you're going to learn a lot from Asher today, and I think in a way that probably I don't explain things normally in a lesson, which is great. So if you're ready to get started.
Absolutely.
The theme for today is going to be expanding your guitar chord vocabulary, right? And we're going to break things down into three main sections. What's the problem? What's the solution you can kind of use to attack this? And then how can you apply this to musical enlightenment? So,
sure.
Asher, man, as you see it, what's the problem that a lot of guitar players run into that, like, your way of attacking things, you're talking about this today, is going to help them kind of proceed and get past some things? Yeah,
well, I mean, one thing that I see a lot with guitar players and songwriters, which I also do a little bit of, and really musicians on any instrument, is we kind of get caught up in these cycles of doing the same thing over and over. And it's really easy, specifically with guitar, to get caught up in playing the same shapes or the same patterns, same licks, whatever that may be. So one thing that I've found that really helps me to kind of move beyond that and grow is to break down what I've already learned and what I already know, and repurpose it, move it around. I mean, when we look at chords, especially if we're talking about, like, the open string, C major, G major, all those, like, hillbilly chords, as I like to call them, being a Texan. If you just break those down, it's 3 notes, So if you can think about how all those notes interact with each other in the different ranges, and spread them out a little bit, you can really come up with some cool combinations. And you start thinking about the guitar instead of just as, like, I play these 3 chords, as, like, I play this, like, orchestral arrangement on the guitar with the 3 chords, You can expand on 1 chord for hours if you want,
So that's the basic problem. You're stuck inside these chords, and maybe you haven't really dug into them and know how they work.
Right.
So what we have for you have a PDF and a jam track for you that Asher's going to show you how to use later on once he describes kind of the 2 little pronged approach to the solution, which is going to be with a C chord for more like a beginner approach, and then with an A minor over F sharp as an example, kind of a springboard to get you into some more intermediate stuff as far as this idea goes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. So open C major chord, a lot of you guys out there have probably learned that. That's like the #1 nemesis of new beginner guitar players, is the open C chord. Right. So what are some prerequisites? Like, you have to be able to spell an open C major or just a C major chord to begin with, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the weird kids that got inspired by music theory and, like, kind of breaking down, like, what I was hearing for all these years, and, like, giving it some kind of name, some kind of context. So yeah, you need to be able to break down what, in this case, C major is, which is just 3 notes, like I was saying earlier, C, E, and G. And so the different ways that you can place those notes give you different sounds and different textures and timbres. So you can fit any musical setting instead of just thinking about it as here's this one thing, you know. So we're going to go into depth a little bit about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's get into that. As far like you're going to show us, start off with some inversions on that, right? And for guys, if you don't know what inversion is out there, that's just when, in this case, when you have like a C major triad, C, E, G, and you have a note besides the C in the bass, right?
Right.
Or the lowest note. Cool.
Yeah, so just kind of like rearranging how you start the notes. So we have C, E, and G are the first 3 notes that we play to make a C major chord. And then when we play the full C major, it sounds like that. But even though I'm now playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes, they're just repeating a couple of the same ones. So we start off with C, E, and G, and then C and E again. So if we decide that we would play just C, E, and G, we have it here, we also have it here, and we also have it here. Those are 3 different chords within the one that we already know. And depending on the context, if you're accompanying yourself, you might want to play thicker voicings. But if you're fitting in with the context of, you know, your favorite players, then you can play maybe something a little more minimal, especially if the bass is covering the low end. Just opens things up a little bit more.
Right on. And the PDF you're going to see, I have it. I had it lined up for you where it's just a regular C major open chord. And then the next one is second inversion triad with the G in the bass. And then just like that. And what does that look like? What other shape does that look like, man?
It looks like an E.
It looks like an E major chord because it's the exact same shape. You're just playing a C chord with it. So that's one thing that's really powerful as far as visualizing stuff on, to me, on the fretboard and knowing exactly, okay, I know the 5th is there, I know the 3rd is there, I know the root's there, right? And then after that, we go into, what's the next inversion we have on there? So it's just a root position.
Regular, C, E, and G.
Right.
Then the next one up, we have E, G, and C. And then the last one that we'll do for now is G, C, and E.
And this is something that I resisted for a long time when I was learning guitar. It's like, I know the shape, that's enough.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I know the number. Oh, no, sorry, I know the notes in the chords. Like, I know how to spell a C chord, C, E, G. That's enough. And then I realized you need to know exactly where those notes are in that chord. You need to know what numbers they are. And it took me a long time. And I want to encourage you guys, if you're a beginner, don't be like me. Tackle this head on, find out exactly what notes are in this chord, right? And then find out exactly what numbers they are. So the 1, the 3, and the 5 are going to be C, E, and G. And pick it apart, man. Write it down. Write it down exactly where each note is in that chord shape.
And the best thing about breaking it down like this, too, is once you learn this position, then all of a sudden all these other positions are applicable throughout the neck. You know, if you play this as C major, if you move that up 2 frets, becomes D major too, you know. No open strings involved right now, so it can all shift around. So once you get these basic shapes, you start to notice it all starts to look pretty similar. And that's when you can really start to expand on playing in any key, any chord progression. You know, you don't have to just rely on, you know, the guys that we know so well. So yeah, I mean, if you look at these different chords, let's start off with the higher one. So that's the G, C, and E. With that one, it's a little bit more tinny, you know. So I might play that in more of like a... But then you can start to mess around with a bunch of different timbres with your articulation, and that can give it so many different sounds. But just based on the range, this sounds totally different than, you know, it's like this is almost like the French horns or the cellos in the orchestra, and this is more of like the, you know, higher woodwinds. So when you start combining those things, it sounds really rich, but you don't always need that. You don't always want that, depending on the context. So just for yourself, you know, I kind of think about things like an orchestra, but maybe you want to think about things as like, you know, different genres that you would use something in. You know, this sounds a little bit more rockin', whereas I think of that as maybe being like a little more country. So I mean, you can do so much with just breaking it down and like thinking about these different chords in a way that makes sense to you and resonates with you. So assigning your own meaning to each inversion, I think, can be really helpful. Yeah.
And I got a quick anecdote.
Sure.
The first time I heard about triads was in a jazz book, and I had no context for it. It just said, learn these. And I had no idea why.
Yeah.
And what you're giving them right here is a reason, okay, this is why you want to learn your second inversion, first inversion, root position, because you're going to be in different musical situations, or in this case, playing with this particular ensemble where you're going to want to hear a certain sound.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to pull it up. And picking your basic chord shapes for you beginners out there, your open chords, picking those apart, really dissecting them and learning them is going to really help you grow a lot faster, particularly as a guitarist and just as a musician overall, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're writing music, especially, that's a big part of what I do. I write music in a lot of different contexts, whether it's with Childish Japes or another one of my main projects called Iris Loon. And when I'm in Iris Loon, I'm playing a lot of different instruments. I'm also playing keyboards. And if I'm thinking about things in this way, everything's transferable, because most of us generally know how a piano is laid out, either by our parents played it, or our friends played it, or we had to play it at some point. So when you start breaking it down like this, if you're thrown a chord progression, you can really make good choices as opposed to just playing these shapes that we've known. So maybe, let's play the musical example that we've got going on.
The little, this is going to be, a C major to an A minor groove?
Yeah, and with A minor, if we play C major over it, we'll get this kind of A minor 7 sound, because in A minor 7 is A, C, E, and G. If you take out the A, it's just C, E, and G, right?
C major.
So all of the things that we just talked about, even if you're just learning this for the first time, that's all still applicable in this particular context. So we're just going to play a little bit of a groove going between C major and A minor. And they're going to lay down something a little more rhythmic so that we can focus on just really getting those inversions to ring clear. So we'll just do whole notes for now, and just practice those basic inversions that we just
And this is available for you in the downloads too, a version of what they're about to play here too, so you can practice. Cool.
Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I'll get to this later in the weekly challenge, but keep that in mind and keep that exercise in mind. What he did is just going through the inversions, picking out 3 notes at a time in that C major chord, and just being really aware of exactly what notes you're playing. You want to go ahead and get into the next little point you have for intermediate stuff?
Well, a couple more things I want to talk about on this first. But also, I think it's really important whenever you're practicing these things to try to give it some kind of musical context.
Yep.
Right? If we are just sitting around playing these inversions, which sometimes you just got to do. But if you can put it in some kind of context to where you're actually making music like this, that sounded decent, that could be a part of a song. So if you can give yourself some kind of way to make it feel like you're not just practicing right there. Some people have, I love practicing personally, but sometimes it can be a little daunting when we're trying something new, something we're not comfortable with yet. So trying to put yourself in that situation, I think, is always helpful. So one more thing to add, we've just been talking about closed triads, something slightly further, right? We talked about how if we break down a triad, it's just those 3 notes. Well, we don't always have to play them in the same part of the register in the guitar. We don't have to play all lows. We could play low G, we could play E in the middle, and then we can play C up top. So doing that plays a much wider voicing. We call them spread triads, which is something that I didn't know about. And till I had already been playing guitar for 10 years. But yeah, spread triads are really, really helpful. So if you just take C, E, and G and you spread it out, you can get these wider voicings. And in some ways, that's a lot easier to play too, you know, especially in C. You can play the low C here, the G there, and then both the G and the E are open, you know. So much nicer voicings in that way. Even if we played a low E, this is kind of a weird one, low E, and then putting your first finger on a C and your third finger or your fourth finger on a high G, that gives us a really wide, like open sounding, kind of mysterious almost sounding C chord. You know, different context, but same notes, totally different texture and sound.
Yeah, it almost doesn't even sound like a C chord.
Totally, yeah.
Awesome.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is a little bit more for intermediate students, but a lot of these things can still be applied that we were talking about earlier. This is just an evolution of that. When we start talking about the ominous jazz vocabulary, we start having to think about more notes, and harmony becomes a little bit more complex. But really, if you break down seventh chords, they're still just triads with one extra note, at least how I'm going to talk about it, triad over a bass note. So we're going to look at A minor over F, which is actually the same thing as F major 7. So if we take this voicing, which is a very common F major 7 voicing, if we look at that, it's just this A minor shape that we know and love so well over F. And we can play all of the notes that we play in that normal A minor over F. And it sounds really rich and warm and full. So if we think about that, anytime we have the notes A, C, and E, which create an A minor chord, if we put that over F, anywhere on the neck, it's going to become an F major 7, even if they're in weird order. For now, let's just talk about this voicing, which is E, A, and C for A minor. So then, if we look at the notes available to us, if we move this E up to a high E, then we have, right? And if we add the F that's on the D string, right here, another F major voicing, F major 7. Some people may have explored these inversions a little further if you're intermediate. So start here, move up to here, and then another one up here, and then it just starts repeating after that. But if we take any of those voicings and then put an F below them, it becomes F major 7. So now we have 3 new F major 7 voicings. Some of these might look a little familiar for you, but once you start expanding on them, you can really get some interesting textures. So we know this one, right? For this one that I played up here at the 5th fret, we can add the F right here. Another F major 7 voicing. Another one that some of you might already know, this A minor triad here, with F in the bass, becomes like that. Very common chord, and then, like I said, it starts repeating. But if we start now doing some of those spread triad type things, we can really get some interesting sounds. So let's do an A minor spread triad. We'll keep it lower on the neck for now. It sounds nice and thick and warm. So right now I have C in the bass, A on the G string, and a high E. And if we put that over F, it sounds like that, just like a really fat, warm chord. I love that voicing, I use it all the time. If we take it a little bit further, if we move that up, we invert that, we can put the E here, the C here, and the A there. Now, this one gets a little complicated. We kind of need a band to play it because I can't play this F at the same time. So Jed, would you mind giving me an F? Different texture, different timbre. And then the last inversion of that would be... Sorry, not quite. There we go. So that's A up at the 12th fret, E on the G string, and a C up top. Can you give me an F one more time? See, in different contexts, you can really expand on your chord vocabulary just by knowing the triad that you need to play up top. So
that's probably my favorite thing about this for intermediate players is on the closed ones that you did.
Right.
They have to think about the notes on the fretboard and what notes are in the chord that they're playing.
Totally.
So I got the shape that I know. Okay, where's the A, C, and the E, and where is there an F on here? I'm going to test if I know where the notes on the fretboard are really fast. And if you don't know them, this is a great way, a really practical way to start getting them in your head. So
totally. And also, sometimes, trying to memorize where all the notes on the fretboard, which is something that, a lot of guitar players do later on after they've been playing for a while. This can be really fun to give it some kind of application. Like, it's not just a note I'm learning. It's like, oh, I can now play more chords because I'm learning the notes on the fretboard.
That's cool. Man.
So giving it context always makes it a little bit more fun.
All right. Anything else on the intermediate stuff?
No.
Okay. Well, to cap things off, I always like to talk about how you can apply things to music, because that's why you're learning all this stuff, man. Really, you can sit down and learn chord shapes all day, but if you don't do anything with them, what good is it? So to kind of take us into the musical enlightenment part of the show, I just want to have you guys play another tune.
Sure.
And just listen to what Asher's playing, and, I'm sure, I don't know what's going through your head when you play, but just watch his hands and think about inversions, things like that. And if you're beginners, if it's overwhelming to you, just think about that C chord. And we'll make that, actually, I skipped a part. The challenge of the week for you guys after Asher has told you all these things about breaking chords down, inverting them. For you beginners, take that C chord, learn exactly what notes are in that C chord. C's, E's, and G's, 1, 3, and 5 of the C major scale. And then learn exactly where they are in the open C major. Try to get all those inversions down that are in the PDF. And then for your intermediate players, take that A minor chord over F, and then think about the F-A-C triad and then the A-C-E triad in there and break them apart. Think about where exactly all those notes are. Move that A minor triad around the fretboard as much as you can using every A minor shape you know, and then find an F to put with it. That is my challenge for you this week. The one little nugget you can take away from this to progress on the guitar.
And this is something that you can continue working on for the rest of your career, too. This isn't just one of those things, it's like it helps you get to the next level as a beginner. It can help you get to the next level with your chord vocabulary at any point in your career, even if you're already totally making a living off of music. Always breaking down what you know and giving it new meaning, new purpose is kind of a good life lesson, I guess, too. So, yeah.
By the way, what was the name of the first tune? Victory Pills, right?
Yeah, that's called Victory Pills. That's going to be pills, not like a pill. But
I made the mistake like that.
but like the beer, Pilsner.
Pilsner.
It's one of my favorite, the Victory Prima Pills. And that's going to be recorded in November with my band Oblio. These guys aren't going to be on that. But we do play that tune in Childish Japes sometimes for our live shows.
Cool.
Because it's a fun one. So yeah, we're going to play another... actually, we're going to do a little bit of an improv.
Improv.
First, right?
Awesome.
Cool. And yeah, I will definitely be doing some chord inversions and thinking about the notes that I'm playing in this. Maybe not so much, but you'll hear it.
That was great, man. I love watching you guys listen to each other. Like, that was really entertaining for me and inspiring.
Thanks.
That was cool. Now it's time for a part of the show called Tone Recipe, because guitar players are just a bunch of gear junkies anyway. So I know you want to know what Asher's playing through.
Very guilty of that.
I have a special name for your rig, even though it's not reflective of what it is at all. It's called Asher's Avocado Shrimp Grapefruit Tower.
That's it, man.
I picked it because it started with an A instead of alliteration. So
It's a colorful rig,
you want to
too,
just walk
you know?
us through your rig, like really quick, just pedals, guitar, amp.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the pedals that I like right now, I always run through my trusty TC Electronic Polytune, which is a really, really great pedal, just because you can hit it, you can tune real quick, which is really nice. It, strum, and then you see all of your strings play and light up, and then you can tune from there. One really awesome thing, too, that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of with tuner pedals is it's also a kill switch, right? So if you really wanted to get some crazy sounds, man, if you play just like a, I don't know, I'll play like a C minor up here. Kind of has this like weird stuttery like delay effect that's really fun to mess with. So sometimes that'll mess up your tuner.
Polytune spoils me, man. I find myself trying to do that with other tuners. I'm like, oh yeah, can't do it.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you need that really quick switch, which a lot of TC Electronics pedals have. I like them a lot. The next one I'll talk about is my little Tender Octaver here. I was using the Pog for a long time, the Micro Pog. And this is essentially a clone of that. And Micro Pog's great. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I just happen to like this sound a little bit more. This one, I was always trying to get like this synthy kind of like raw tone. I always turn my dry like almost all the way off, if not entirely all the way off. That's one of the sounds I like to use. And this one, just the Tender Octaver by Moore, it just has this like thick low end that I really like. Just, I don't know, there's something about the sub on this that I feel like is a little warmer.
It's almost organy.
Yeah, super organy. And also, if you want to get super heavy, I like to turn my sub to the middle and then the dry signal in the middle as well. So you kind of balance those out, and then throwing on like a heavy fuzz or something, like you can get some fat bass lines. So that's a fun one to mess around with. Yeah, I use that all the time. Over here, kind of ghetto rigging it a little bit. I built this pedal board, if you can't tell, and it's been really good for me. I've got another one of my favorite pedals over here, which is the MF Ring by Moog. I'm a big Moog fan, and Iris Loon, which is my indie electronic band that I'm very proud of. We have some singles coming out. You should check us out. This is a huge part of that sound, and our bass player uses the Moog Sub 37 and everything. But I love using the ring modulator really subtly, so you can get these kind of like crunchy sounds, almost overdrive-esque in context. But with this guy, I really just love like the slight crunch that you can get with it. Like, you don't really hear that as a ring mod almost. Yeah. It's just like this extra little kind of like
flutters,
offness to it. That's on and then off.
That's pretty subtle.
And that obviously can get as wild as you want, but you can almost get this this kind of like, I don't know, in one of the Childish Japes songs on the album that we collaborated with this great singer, Courtney Swain from a band called Bent Knee on. Part of my tone on that, I also did a take where I put like some paper in between my strings to get like a kalimba-esque sound, but you can also kind of get something similar with this.
sounds like metallic. Yeah.
Yeah, it just gives it that like kind of papery sound. It's kind of similar to like a balafone. So yeah, I love
That's
I
a
love
cool
that
texture.
sound. And of course, combining all these things is great. But my overdrive of choice right now, which I use all the time, is the Way Huge green Rhino. I bought this off of our friend Drew of the Drew. He's endorsed by Jim Dunlop, and they have so many great pedals. But this is the one that I have really enjoyed lately.
Yeah.
And it's just a really versatile overdrive. You can get really subtle drives to like super huge and crunchy, kind of fuzzed out. And that can be really versatile. You have this 100 hertz boost, or you can take it out if you want, and also like a mid-range boost and curve, which is
nice.
super helpful. I often just keep it really subtle, but I love the way it sounds. It's kind of like a tube screamer, but I like how deep you can get with it. All the Way Huge pedals, you can get pretty deep. I don't mean to jump over these two, but they're pretty great. So over here, my fuzz that I'm using is called, it's the Your and Your by, spelled two different ways, by Montreal Assembly. And they're really affordable. Scott Monk is a guy out of Montreal who makes these, and I have two of his pedals, both the Your and the Count to 5. The Your is really simple. It's only $100 too, which is great. But you can get just like super gnarly fuzz tones, and both of these you can hook up with an expression pedal, so you can get a variety of different like depth with the tone knob on this that you can control separately if you want. And when you have it on the low range, you get like almost like these octaves that come out with the harmonics. So I'm in love with that guy. It's super simple, but you can
I know
do so
Andrew's
much.
jealous in there. He's a big fuzz guy.
Oh yeah, it's a good one to have, and I have the Zvex Fuzz Factory that I use a lot at home too, but I mostly use that for recording.
Yeah.
It's a little unpredictable for me live. And then the Count to 5. I mean, I'm not going to go super into this one because it's really deep.
Yeah.
But essentially, what I use it for is either that really fluttery sound that you guys may have heard on the first tune, and a little bit in that last one. I always keep it on the reverse in the mix so that you can still hear a bit of the dry tone. But essentially what it's doing is it's a delay pedal that plays your what you just played back twice as fast, and then you can have that either twice as fast reversed or twice as fast going forward.
I've never seen anything like that.
It's pretty wild. And then you also have two looping modes. So if I wanted to play like, it just takes that fragment and then like, you can speed it up or slow it down. You can also have it play it back at a couple different speeds and quantize the pitch at which it's playing it back at. So right now I have it set to fourths and fifths. So it's super cool what you can do with that. It's like an endless world of discovery. And then, yeah, two different delay pedals that I always have. I'm a huge Eventide fan.
I was about to say one of which is my favorite delay pedal.
Yeah, the time factor is really deep. I've always been a fan of their stuff, and I've had some version of this. This is my second one actually. First one blew out on a tour in China, unfortunately, but I had to get another one. So yeah, man, the Eventide, it's amazing. I usually use the vintage delay setting. Because of all like the warmth that you can get after the fact. Playing a chord, like repeating, which is really fun. It's like a momentary loop. I love what you can do with the bit rate at the end. It starts getting like crunchier and crunchier.
It's a little nasty, yeah.
Almost sounds like waves. and then you can really make it get weird. So it just starts freaking out, you know? And then, of course, like, you know, with most delay pedals, especially analog delays, you can do all that kind of stuff, which is a huge part of my sound, I think, too. And then this is a transition delay, which they don't make anymore, but TC Electronics. And that I really love. It's basically the same thing as the flashback. And I usually use it for reverse delays or looping. So that's a somewhat in-depth rundown.
No, that's great.
Of
There's
my
a lot of
rig.
unique sounds there.
Yeah.
What's your guitar?
My guitar, I love this guy. I actually got it used. But I was never a Strat guy before. I've always been a Fender fan. I mostly played Tellys in the past. And I played a little bit of Gibsons as well. I have a couple arch tops that I really love by them back at home. But this has kind of become my main axe. It's a 50th anniversary Strat. Believe it's the same thing as the Buddy Holly edition.
Yeah.
And I just, man, it's so versatile. Like the amount of tones that I can get, like I feel like I can take this to a jazz gig and feel totally at home playing standards or obviously funk gigs and rock gigs, you know, experimental. It's just kind of like an all-around, you know,
workhorse,
really easy workhorse, yeah.
When I worked at a Guitar Center, I sold so many of those when they first came out because the year I was working there when they came out. And years later, I went and bought the 60th anniversary because I couldn't find any of the 50ths. So, for it's worth. Great guitars.
Yeah, I love it.
What amp you playing through in there?
Well, in there, Fender Twin.
Yeah.
The old trusty. But at home in New York, I really needed something that was portable and easy to use.
Yeah.
And the guys over at ZT Amplifiers, I have one of their lunchbox amps, and it's amazing. It's so easy to use. That thing has been through hell, and it still sounds great. And, I mean, you can't really beat the tone for, you know, how portable it is. It's kind of incredible. I'm a huge fan of their stuff, and I've even done some recording with it, and taking it around town makes it so easy, especially when you're using public transportation in New York for everything.
Not a backbreaker.
You know, it's a great amp, 200 watts, and a little guy about that big.
Wow.
You can't beat
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah, ZT, big advocate.
I need to check those guys out because I hate carrying stuff around.
Well, CT lunchbox. Maybe
It's time
the
for the
app
third
you.
degree.
Yeah.
It's time for a section of the show where I'm going to put Asher on the spot just a little bit. Not too bad.
No.
It's called the third degree, and I'm going to ask him 3 rapid-fire questions. Okay. Just answer them as fast as you can.
I'll do my best.
If you want a funny answer, that's fine, too. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was I believe a Japanese old Telecaster.
Oh, okay.
That my father gave to me as a friend of his named Gary Lambert, who lives out in New Zealand. And yeah, it's still one of my favorite guitars to play.
You still have it?
I still have it.
That's
I
so
still
cool,
love playing
man.
it. I actually played it on my senior recital at school.
I wish I still had one.
And it's a Tele, but it sounds amazing. It's got like the lipstick pickup here, and then he put in like this weird passive EMG pickup here that sounds phenomenal. It's still like really great, really raw and like gritty, and you know, it's another guitar you can kind of do anything you want with. So,
man,
yeah,
didn't expect that answer, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Kasuga.
Second question: if you could only recommend one book and/or album for the people out there to check out, what would it be?
Oof.
Either or. It doesn't have to be like your favorite. Just recommend something that's valuable to you.
Man, I guess one of the albums, couple. I'll name 2 albums.
Sure.
I was never really a book user guy, but man, my uncle let me listen to Jimi Hendrix Are You Experienced for the first time when I was really young, and that kind of got me into being like, all right, well, I gotta play guitar
I know
now.
what I'm doing
Seriously,
now.
you know, I can't.
That's a good
There's no
answer.
choice. So that was huge inspiration for me at first, but another huge inspiration for me in an album that I really got into, that my old teacher, Clint Strong, who he's still one of my favorite guitar players ever, but he was the one that really got me passionate about jazz. He kind of took me under his wing, and we would have like 4-hour lessons, you know, once a week when I was in high school for the last couple of years, and just a wealth of knowledge and incredible player, and Yeah, one album that he really turned me on to that got me so stoked about jazz was Sonny Rollins' The Bridge. Jim Hall is playing guitar on that, and that was a huge inspiration for me. Talk about chord vocabulary, you know, repurposing, you know, chords. That guy's a total genius, R.I.P. And just how compositional he plays and how tasteful he is, but also he's got a lot of facility. So Sonny Rollins, The Bridge, Jim Hall, gotta listen to it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
This last question might overlap with that a little bit.
Sure.
But it doesn't have to be your top three, just three of your biggest musical influences or inspirations, either way you want to take it.
Ooh, that's a really hard one.
It doesn't have to. These are, disclaimer, these aren't set in stone. You know.
Sure. Justin Vernon from Bon Iver, I would say, is right up there. Cool. Just as a producer, a thinker. I really love the way that he approaches music. I mean, Clint Strong, like I was saying earlier, is definitely one of the hugest influences I've ever had. Yeah, this is tough. Last one. At Berkeley, another really, really important teacher I had, and one of my favorite players ever is David Tronzo as well. Tronzo is a slide guitar player, and
oh, you told me about him yesterday.
Man, what a monster, and what a great guy too. Yeah, he really helped me. Like, he changed my view of guitar playing and making music in general. Very, very important figure for me, David Tronzo.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've come to the end. They're going to play us out with one more song, but I just want to thank you guys for coming out. This has been really inspirational for me, and I know the guys out there love it. Again, if you want to find out more about Childish Japes, you go to facebook.com/Childish Japes, go to asherkurtz.com, or what's the Instagram?
Asher Kurtz Music.
There you go.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for their new album, go check it out. It's called After You're Born. That's right. I didn't want to mess that up. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you set your goals and be consistent with your practice, you will get better on the guitar.